Welcome to WBC Faster Together, the LinkedIn Live series of the Women Business Collaborative. I'm Gwen Young, Chief Operating Officer of the WBC, and today I'm with my co-host and WBC Advisory Council member, Linda Peakshack, and we are joined by the Mother-Daughter Leadership Development Team, Dr. Catherine Brown and Sydney Brown, plus Stacy Levine, for a conversation on the importance of leadership academies for girls, the crucial first step in the pipeline for women's leadership. The WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 70 women's business organizations and hundreds of business leaders building a movement to achieve equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands to create momentum and accelerate the pace of change. Helmed by Edie Frazier as our founder and CEO, our leadership is a diverse board of directors and an advisory and leaders councils that include more than 34% people of color. And at this time, as an organization, we continue to stand with the people of Ukraine in their fight for freedom. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and allyship underlie all of the work that we are doing. As well, we are committed to building the pipeline of women leaders through allyship, learning and development, and advocacy. Check it out in the chat and join our movement at wbcollaborative.org. And each week in this series, we offer different ways to advocate change by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up the power of women's voices for change, and by showcasing the importance of cross-generational collaboration and the allyship of men in the movement. So today, to talk about the importance of girls' leadership academies, I'm turning it over to you, Linda.
Thanks, Gwen. You know, one of WBC's 9 action initiatives is creating and maintaining and growing the pipeline of women leaders. So today we want to go back to the beginning of that pipeline, building confidence in girls to embrace their leadership abilities, to find their voices, and to take bold risks to achieve their goals. And we have 3 amazing people to help us talk about that. We're going to highlight 2 of their programs and all 3 of their amazing accomplishments because they've impacted hundreds of girls. Stacy Levine is an accomplished civic leader who serves her community and state by creating and leading collaborative partnerships to promote better health, rural tourism, and girls' leadership. As program director for Music City Girls Lead, she helped develop confidence in hundreds of Tennessee girls. She's an architect by training. She just was elected city council person in Dixon, Tennessee, and she's director of Healthy Parks, Healthy Person, and was a regional director of the Governor's Foundation for Healthy Tennessee. And you'll see that there's a health theme as well as a young girls theme that runs through today's program. Sydney YK Brown, and it's important that both Catherine and Cindy have their middle initials. It's part of their brand. She's an award-winning researcher. She is a nonprofit leader, and she wants and is transforming the medical field to better meet the needs of underserved populations. In 2019, she made history as the youngest scholar and the first undergraduate student to be accepted and to graduate from the Morehouse School of Medicine Satcher Health Leadership Institute. She graduated college in 3 years, graduated magna cum laude in neuroscience, and she now is in the master's program at Lipscomb in civic leadership as she gets ready to go into medical school. She's also the executive director of the Roberta Baines-Wheeler Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Group and its 501c3 nonprofit, where she was pivotal in founding the organization's Leadership Academy, the Dr. Catherine Y. Brown Leadership Academy, named in her mother's honor, and now to her mother. Also someone who has a lot of firsts. Dr. Catherine Y. Brown, we call her Dr. Catherine, is founder of Learn CPR America and also founder of the Dr. Catherine Y. Brown KYB Leadership Academy. She's a sought-after speaker. She's been a TED presenter. She's been featured in Forbes, and among other things, she has brought CPR training training to hundreds of people in dozens of countries. And she now has taken the KYB Leadership Academy, not only across the country, but across the world. The other way that she's a first is in Nashville. She is the only woman to have received both the Athena Young Professional Award and the Athena Traditional Leadership Award. Really, for our city, an important distinction for her. So let's get started with these amazing women. I want to ask this to Catherine and Stacy, and Catherine, will ask you to go first. And that is, why is it important to have academies for girls? Why is it important to develop leadership? And tell us how your belief in that is manifested in your programs. Catherine?
Absolutely. And first, thank you all so much for having me here and also with Sydney. So it's an honor. So when we think about research, we know that by age 8, children are already beginning to have a clear image of their future selves, specifically of what they want to be when they grow up. But for our young girls and women, that image gets greatly influenced by popular culture, stereotypes that often leaves them performing well below their ability and with a limited vision for their futures. And so the thought behind this was, how do we build leaders of leaders of leaders? And so what we did was we adopted a cohort model that was a year-long program that really focused on recognizing untapped potential to provide a leadership training experience with specific competencies that for many female leaders are late in development. So we need these programs because we want our young girls to have confidence and competence, but we also want to have an opportunity for them to demonstrate those leadership skills. So the other thing about women and girl leadership programs is that they cannot be passive programs. They have to be participatory programs. But if we are expected to be ready for the global marketplace of the future, which is now our present, it begins with leadership programs for girls. And that's how we got started with the KYB Leadership Academy. We saw a void, and we really focused to develop a curriculum based upon research and the evidence that these are the gaps that they would have without otherwise participating in these programs. And it's part of our nonprofit. So they have the mission to build the capacity for global leadership while also increasing awareness of pulmonary hypertension. So they have a lot of opportunities.
That's great, Catherine. Stacy, tell us about Music City Girls Lead, another much shorter leadership program that began in Nashville.
That's right. Well, like Dr. Catherine said, we know that there are, beginning around the elementary school age, girls begin to hold back and they begin to lose their confidence. So we know that just reaching out to girls and helping them shape their thinking is so important. In 2014, Nashville was selected to host the NCAA Women's Final Four Championship. And with that program, each city that's selected each year comes up with kind of some legacy programs focused on women and girls. And so Music City Girls Lead, with an exclamation point, was born out of the NCAA Final Four hosted in Nashville. And it was created and produced in conjunction with Lipscomb University and the Nelson and Sue Andrews Institute for Civic Leadership. And it was also created in the cohort style. It was over 3 different sessions, and each session was very focused on a particular kind of topic. And so session number 1, we focused on who am I? And so the girls were able to do skills and personality assessments, really dive into what their unique contributions to the world are. The second session focused on who are we? really building on, we stand on the shoulders of others. We get nowhere without help from other women. And we also focused on some of the rich history surrounding Nashville and Middle Tennessee, as far as votes for women, and Nashville having a pivotal role in the votes for women movement. And then the third session focused on what can we do together. And this was where the girls were also, throughout the 3 sessions, they were tasked with researching and coming up with a community-based project. And in that third session, they really focused on how to implement this project to the community and what kind of impact they could have collectively. And the Music City Girls Lead was focused on the high school ages, just because of some of the deeper dives we wanted to do within the program. And we continued on for nine different cohorts. I think we had over 170, 180 young ladies come through the program, and it has been one of the most amazing things to watch grow and take off.
Yes, and we also had mentors, and I think this is important for the WBC audience. We had business and nonprofit leaders, women from the deep bench of women leaders that we have in Nashville, who volunteered to also be mentors to the girls in Music City Girls Lead, which was an important part of the program. The part about the using Nashville and the state of Tennessee and the country as a classroom on the who are we, it was important that, Stacy, I think you'll agree, that we also had them look at what their community is in terms of diversity. And it was a really, I think, eye-opening and important part of Music City Girls Lead to have a cross-section from rural and urban, from private schools and public schools, and Black, Latina, and white students working together in this. And as I said, I think it was eye-opening and a growth opportunity in that way as well. Okay, Sydney, you were part of both of them. You participated in Music City Girls Lead. We asked you back to be a graduation speaker and also to do a Q&A with your mom in that graduation ceremony. And then you went on to help your mom start her leadership academy. So what did you gain and why are you paying it forward?
I think it's definitely important to start by saying that health advocacy and community development has always been integral in my life growing up on the South Side of Chicago. Working with my mother as she established the first freestanding CPR clinic in that specific community. So community service is definitely my go-to, my foundation in everything that I do. And what Music City Girls Lead allowed me to do was to apply more of a policy approach as it relates to community development and understanding what are these academic theories that inform the way that we collaborate with groups, how we are able to amplify our voices, but also the voices that are not being heard within our communities. And in 2012, we initially started the Roberta Baines Wheeler Pulmonary Hypertension Awareness Group in my grandmother's honor. And then we moved on to establish the KYB Leadership Academy in 2016, because we saw that these patients weren't able to advocate for themselves and they needed support often. And who is best able and has the ability and the aptitude to support our older generation, youth. So we tapped into that and we gave leaders the opportunity to excel in traveling, tapping into health, also financial literacy, and then having the ability to develop community programs within their areas of interest. So what I gained from both academies was the ability to apply academic theories and knowledge, but also learning how to activate and mobilize my passions into projects, not only for myself, but for people who I care about in the most vulnerable populations.
Oh, well, Sydney, you're exhibit A for both academies, but also because you are the daughter of Catherine Y. Brown, I'm going to ask, What's it like working together as a leadership development team? One of the things we look at here is the notion of reverse mentoring, and you kind of live reverse mentoring, learning from each other. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. I don't know if you know this, but my mom is a very, very, very busy lady. She's accomplished a lot of things, and I think oftentimes I would go with her to events, and I had the opportunity to be mentored and engage with amazing leaders in our community who looked like me, had similar ideas as myself, and had many of the same passions. Right. So oftentimes, when you're living in the household with a leader such as my mother, imposter syndrome can kick in sometimes, and you begin to question who you are and how can you lead authentically in establishing your own type of ownership. But of course, she's always supportive, and she gave me opportunities to lead and develop programs to tap into my potential. And I also was surrounded by leaders such as yourself, Linda, who saw the potential in me and afforded me opportunities to not only participate, but implement programs to impact young women like me. So it's amazing working with my mother. She's taught me how to lead and blaze a trail of my own with steadfast ingenuity and authenticity, and to always remember that I'm standing on the shoulders of supportive women like Linda, Pat Pierce, and she will always be in my corner throughout all the transitions in my life and everything moving forward.
Yes, we know from Dr. Catherine's Facebook page, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, we know all about you and your brothers. So it is great that she is also one of your great supporters. So Catherine, what's it like having this dynamo as a daughter, and what have you learned from her?
You know, what I have learned is the importance of passing the baton to the next generation while you are able to view their success. So Sydney, to me, has really amplified the vision and the mission of the organization, but I think it's because of the willingness of being able to pass the baton sooner. So here's one thing that I do want to make sure that I share. What is that like? Linda, when we started the RBWPH Awareness Group, I was in one of your leadership programs. And I had all these great ideas of what it should look like. And Linda, what you would say to me, but what does that mean? And so when we developed the mission of RBW, I always go back to the mission of that nonprofit really came from Linda, from you, and a piece of yellow paper where you made me write it out. What does it look like? Well, from there, when we started KYB, we had 4 modules, 4 core areas, 7 competencies, and an international component. And so we had already been to Johannesburg, South Africa, Dubai, Costa Rica. We just got back from Turks and Caicos Islands, several other international places. And we're at 28 cohorts right now, nationally and internationally. And we started high school, but now we're in middle schools and colleges. So what is it like to work with Sydney? Sydney took the vision and she elevated it. And I believe it was because she was in both programs that she understood that you start with an assessment. We do the DISC assessment in KYB Leadership Academy, but we were doing introduction to leadership and effective communication, welcoming and appreciating diversity, managing difficult situations and teamwork, a commitment to lifelong learning and service to the community. We helped birth that inside of her as her village, right? And so it's just amazing. When I sit back and watch her, sometimes I get teary-eyed and I'm like, this is amazing. But I know as a professional woman, I didn't do it by myself. I planted the seeds, my mother planted the seeds, but then I trusted her with my village. And so you did her recommendation for graduate school. If it were not for her being at those Music City Girls Leads programs, she may not have got exposed to the Lipscomb campus where she's now finishing that master's degree. So again, working with Sydney is amazing. She's a visionary. She has so many amazing ideas, and the way that she synthesizes is different than me. So we don't have to lead the same way. We do it and our voices come together. Now, as a mother and daughter team, we have to schedule time with each other because we're always in creative land. So we have a room in my office, and it's the creative room. So if she has an idea, she'll write it out, and I might walk in there, I'll add a little bit to the idea, and then we'll schedule time to have a conversation, because there are those moments where I'm mother, those moments where I'm mentor, and then those moments where I am the colleague, and I am not the executive director. She is. So I work under her leadership when it comes to RBW. And when it comes to KYB, because KYB is a program of RBW, I report to Sydney, and people fail to realize that. It's my name, but that's the boss now. And I love everything about what that means to have over 200 scholars now. And we were just doing a culture immersion trip where we would look at health, leadership, government, and finance. Sydney has now expanded that to, we have the cohort in Turks and Caicos Islands. They're looking at getting a KYB on the different islands. And we're getting ready to go to Bali, Indonesia. And she's doing these RBW gardens, and she developed toolkits, and she added metrics and science.
That's
It's
great
amazing to see.
Well, I want to tell our audience we're going to go a little over today because of the excitement and the enthusiasm here. Stacy, let's talk reverse mentoring. What did you learn from Sydney and the other young women in Music City Girls Lead? They saw you as such a model, as a working mom and as a creative leader. What did you learn from them?
You know, honestly, I learned to be proud of myself and my accomplishments, because sometimes as a young working mom, you're tired all the time. You feel like you're being pulled in a million directions. But seeing these girls so in tune with their gifts and their abilities reminded me to be proud of mine as well, and to celebrate each other's accomplishments. I was also always very impressed with how much knowledge the girls had concerning community events and world events going on. You know, these kids are paying attention. Children these days are paying attention. They have their own opinions about how to change the world, and they feel like they can change the world. And I believe they can. I loved getting to see what community projects the girls chose. They had to be implemented in their community, so they were very localized, but they were very concerned with issues such as bullying, such as texting and driving, vaping. We had lots of projects around peer support, homeless support. So I just loved seeing the passion and watching these young women turn their passions into collaborative efforts. Really, I just was mostly just re-inspired by working with the young.
Well, thank you so much for the work you do. Now, I'm going to give Sydney the last brief word here. What's your advice to all of us who are older, trying to engage you, and also one piece of advice to people your age and the younger women that you are mentoring now?
So oftentimes as women and young girls, we struggle in silence, we work in silence, we even lead in silence sometimes. So when it comes to mentorship, regardless of age, demographic, or experience, I think what really needs to be present is vulnerability, accountability, as well as transparency. We need leaders who are willing to express the highs as well as the lows in their experiences in their career, right? You can't have peaks without valleys, and we need to be able to express our struggles equally and oppositely with young girls. And also, even with Linda, sometimes she'll text me and I'll text her, or I'll have to call her, send her a quick email. We're able to find the rhythm that works for us as it relates to accountability, right? And vulnerability as well. Sometimes I'm going to be struggling in silence, but I need a mentor who's going to be able to look at me, assess what's going on, and tap into and see the areas of potential and growth that I need. So as young women, I would definitely advise that we each practice vulnerability, accountability, and transparency.
Great. And thanks to you all today. Thanks to our audience for staying with us for a few more minutes. Gwen, take us out and tell us who we're going to see next week.
Love that. Thank you. And I love that vulnerability and accountability. I think that's fantastic. So thank you, Linda, Catherine, Sydney, and Stacy, for all your insights today and the lively conversation. And as Linda said, that's all we have time for today. So we invite you to wbcollaborative.org to learn more about our initiatives, which are to increase women in the C-suite, CEO, and in the boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women in areas like access to capital and specific industries. And of course, as we talked about today, to advance a pipeline of women leaders that will bring gender and pay parity, diversity, equity, and inclusion to the business landscape. Join our movement, and please join us here next week, where we speak with Anna Drucher and myself about where women are in the boardroom. And join us weekly to keep up to date on our progress, the movement for gender parity in business, and the latest issues by following us on social media at WB Collaborative on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And have a wonderful Thursday afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.